Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Cormorant Productions, here to talk about This Is Us, Season 5, Episode 4, titled Honestly. Before going any further, I will tell you that this is not a spoiler-free video, as usual, and if you haven't seen the episode yet, I highly recommend you do so before watching this video. The funny thing is, the complaints I made about last episode being overstuffed, I can make this episode as well. But the difference is, here, it seems to work better. The difference here, at least for me, is that they zeroed in on telling one story involving the younger kids, instead of trying to tell 3 different stories and giving none of them any time. We have Jack and Rebecca as new parents when the big 3 were just babies. Kevin won't stop crying, and Jack is trying to get Rebecca not to go in there, just to let him cry it out. And this story connects to the younger teen set, Kevin, who is learning to play football. And in turn, that connects to the older Kevin story. This episode features a very good use of Jack. You may know my comments about the character of Jack in the season premiere, and how he's almost outlived his usefulness. This episode proves that there's still good uses for him. He can absolutely still fit into the series. I just think he should be used more sparingly. And if he doesn't have a good purpose for being there, he shouldn't be. More time should be spent with the billions of other stories that need to be told still before the series is over. So let's start with Kevin's thread in this episode. As I already stated, at the beginning, it was Rebecca and Jack trying to get him to go to sleep and sleep through the night, and resist the urge to go into his room and comfort him so that he will go to sleep. Now, there is certainly an argument that I've heard that this is not the right approach, that this is old thinking. Letting the kid cry it out is not the way to go. But, for the purposes of this episode, let's suggest that Jack is right here. Jack wants to let him cry it out, and it's killing him to do it too. Rebecca wants to go and comfort him. Jack tries to stop her, and he doesn't completely succeed at that. Eventually, she ends up going to do it anyway. Which leads into the Kevin storyline when he was a young teen trying to play football. He's having trouble memorizing the plays, and Randall suggests that he use index cards, rainbow-colored index cards, and Kevin ends up dissing this. Because of course he does. But Kevin goes to practice after trying to eat 50-something eggs because the coach seems to like the movie Cool Hand Luke, and it's actually a pretty good movie. I'm a fan myself. And he doesn't have a very good day, which is revealed to Jack when he goes to pick him up. The coach tells him that Kevin absolutely has the ability, but he has to put in the work. And there's another Cool Hand Luke reference. What we have here is a failure to communicate. Jack and Kevin goes home, and Kevin pretty much just wants to quit. Jack really doesn't want him to. Jack tells him that as a quarterback, he's made a commitment to the team, and he can't just quit the minute something gets tough. Rebecca is less than pleased, which she expresses when Kevin leaves the scene, suggesting that she wants to go up there and let him know that he can quit if he wants to. And Jack rather firmly says that he is strongly asking her not to do that, that he's been doing this to Kevin all his life, coddling him, making him soft. Which again is debatable. Jack's parenting style here is debatable, and many people are discussing that online and in the forums as I've read. But again, for this episode's purpose and talking about this episode, we're going to go ahead and assume that Jack's approach is right here. Kevin overhears this conversation, and then he goes to Randall and says that he needs his help. Randall is initially skeptical, thinking that he's just playing some kind of elaborate joke on him. But he isn't. He is legitimately asking Randall for help. And Randall obliges. And this is an example that Randall and Kevin were not always crappy together. They had their moments where they were good brothers to each other. Later, Rebecca goes upstairs with the likely intention of telling Kevin that he can quit. But she sees Randall and Kevin together, high-fiving each other, which for Jack and Rebecca is a pretty rare sight. So she ends up changing her mind. And then we have a pretty excellent Jack and Rebecca scene, where Jack talks about his father, calling him the Jack of all trades, which when he was a kid he thought that was a compliment. He thought that was the coolest thing, he loved it. But later on, and he calls his father Stanley here, he mentions him by name, which shows the level of disrespect and just how sour that relationship is, or was, because I'm pretty sure at this point in the series he's dead. But his father ends up finishing that sentence, Jack of all trades, master of none, meaning that his father felt he was good at nothing. He wants differently for his kids. He wants his kids to feel that he sees greatness in them. He wants to push them hard, because he wants them to know that he believes in them, even if really all he wants to do is coddle his son, tell him that it's okay to quit, let him take a nap rather than doing drills. He feels if he were to do that, he would be letting them down. Near the end of the episode, we see Jack, who's downstairs in the kitchen. He hears little baby Kevin crying. He goes to the room. He's struggling. He knows he shouldn't go in that room, or at least that's the way he feels. Whether he's right or not is, again, debatable. But he's debating. He's right at that door, ready to open that door. And then baby Kevin stops crying. A victory. A parental victory. And I know that feeling. It's rare. And we also see him peeking in on Kevin as a teen and see him learning the plays via the method that Randall taught him. And we see a look of pride on Jack's face. Another little victory. And that method that Randall taught him all those years ago is the exact method that Kevin now uses to memorize his lines for the movies he's in, which I thought was a nice little touch. Meanwhile, the adult Kevin is meeting his co-star and his director of the new movie that he just got the part of. No Madison this week. She gets the week off. We'll see her next week, or rather next episode, which isn't going to happen for a while, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. The director, Foster, is apparently a visionary director. He comes in with all sorts of praise for Kevin's co-star, while basically kind of ignoring Kevin. They do a read of the script, which doesn't seem to be going very well for Kevin, who has to keep repeating the line, honestly, over and over, without getting any feedback as to exactly what he's doing wrong. The title of the episode is Honestly, as I already mentioned at the top of the video, and it's repeated quite a few times by quite a few different characters throughout the episode. Later we see Kevin confront the director. Well, confront is too strong of a word. He goes to talk to the director, telling him, hey, you were kind of rough on me. And the director says, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you were the type of guy that needed an attaboy. And believe me, he is totally the guy that needs an attaboy. The director tells him that he learned today that Kevin is a very good actor. That when he dies, he will be remembered as a good actor. But if Kevin really wants, he can be a great actor, one of the greats. And that's his choice. And if he wants to be that guy, he'll come back the next day. I'll get into Kevin's last scene in this episode when we go into Kate's thread. The scene is really relevant to both of them, and I don't think I can talk about it without first explaining Kate's involvement in this story. Moving on to the Randall thread in this episode. Randall was acting like Randall of old, the dorky, goofy dad that we still sometimes see, but not as much. When you have an actor of Sterling K. Brown's capabilities, you're going to give him as much dramatic material as possible. Still, it was kind of fun to see the old Randall, the one that used to be my favorite character, over Kevin. From him torturing Deja about spending time all day with her boyfriend Malik. And actually, speaking of Malik, their pairing in this episode was excellent. They had an awesome scene in the premiere, and their time together in this episode was no less great. It's enough to make one wish that he had actually taken Randall up on his offer to be his best friend. I certainly hope that we get more of this pairing, because it's clearly gold. Malik is shadowing Randall at his job as a councilman. He's 6 minutes late, and he falls asleep at some point. Both are things that Randall takes as Malik not really taking things seriously and being bored. J1, his chief of staff, can't be around for his broadcast, his live stream, and instead Malik is asked to basically push a button that will end the live stream. During the scene, Malik gives up the little detail that Deja actually watches the live stream, which is an interesting little character detail, and I'm not sure why she would do this, why she would be interested, other than as a plot point for what happens a little bit later. The stream is going on. Malik gets a phone call from his mother asking him questions about the baby, and doesn't notice that it's time to end the live stream. Randall, thinking that it's over, starts undressing to go for his jog. And Deja and the family at home start panicking, including Tess, who comes downstairs. Deja watching was a little bit of a stretch, but Tess watching is even more so. And isn't she grounded? How is she able to watch when her phone was taken away? I presume that her tablet or whatever is also taken away. But I guess not. It definitely hasn't been 6 weeks yet. So, I'm not sure if this is, a little bit of a plot hole, or if this is not grade A parenting that they got going on here. In this case, Deja watching was fortuitous, because she could alert Beth that Randall was stripping in front of a live audience. When they can't get a hold of Randall because he's too busy stripping, they eventually get a hold of Malik, who has now realized that he's made a very big mistake. Later, Randall and Malik talk about it. Randall starts off by pointing out that he was late and that he was sleeping, and he realizes that this stuff is boring. But he was given a job, a task. Just literally just pushing a button. That was his job. And he failed to do that. He thinks it's because Malik isn't taking it seriously. But it's actually more because as a young teen father, he's exhausted. He has to wake up really early in the morning to prepare for his baby to be awake. And he had to wake up extra early today to iron his shirt. Something he could have taken care of the night before, but whatever. It's still a nice little bonding scene between the two of them. And Malik ends up getting a nice little internship out of it. You know, when I screw up, and my screw-ups are nowhere near the magnitude of what Malik just did here, I just get yelled at. I don't end up getting an internship out of it. But good for Malik. Kate's thread in this episode is her joining the birth mother for an ultrasound. It is her first opportunity to see what the baby that she has named Chloe. Kate's all telling Toby that if he wants to see the baby, he needs to be serious Toby and not funny Toby. And then later in the ultrasound scene, the birth mother is talking about eating the ultrasound paste. Just like in the previous episode when Toby is saying that she shouldn't wear the mask because it will give off the wrong vibe, and then she accidentally ends up doing so, and the birth mother ends up liking it. In a moment of excitement, Kate calls the unborn baby Chloe, and the birth mother gets upset. Kate definitely notices this, but again, she makes the wrong diagnosis. She thinks it's about naming the baby at all. And later when she's talking to the birth mother, she asks her if she's having second thoughts. And oh, by the way, this is a point that I wish to bring up. Whoever makes the promos for these episodes needs to be fired. I haven't particularly liked the promos that I've seen for the episodes. It's a minor and probably stupid complaint, but they really aren't very good, and they are highly, highly misleading. In the promo for this episode, they made us think that the birth mother was going to have second thoughts, and maybe it was going to go the cliched route that we were all fearing, that the birth mother would make a last-minute change of heart and decide not to adopt the child out to Toby and Kate. That's literally dismissed within 2 seconds. The baby's mother problem is that the name Chloe is similar to the name of a person who used to bully her. And she expresses 100% faith in Toby and Kate being the adopted parents. So far this year, the story has been a very pleasant surprise. And I wouldn't mind if this birth mother character sticks around, because I kind of like her. The actor who plays her is Annie Funk, and she seems to be relatively new on the acting scene. She only has 13 credits to her name, only one of which I've seen, and I don't remember her in it. During that conversation, Ellie, the birth mother, talks about how she was really close to getting an abortion before she changed her mind. This conversation stirs stuff up for Kate, which leads into her scene with Kevin. Kevin has had a bad day, having gotten his butt kicked by his director of his new movie. He talks of wanting to do something great, of perhaps taking his mom to the Oscars for an award that he's going to get. And that's something he wants to do while she still has the ability to remember. But first, he says, he needs to give a performance that isn't so tired. Which harkens directly back to the fight that Randall and Kevin had in the finale last year. Kate points this out, and I really wish she hadn't done that. If I were to do that moment, I would have had to just let it sit there and let people see that for themselves. But Kate seizes the moment to bring the conversation to the conversation that she had with Randall in the premiere about how Randall felt unseen, which is more Kate's paraphrasing than something Randall actually said. Kevin doesn't quite get it because he can't quite see past this sibling rivalry, saying that their parents were obsessed with Randall and that they had to fight for 5 minutes of their time. But Kate doesn't really want to talk about Randall at all. She's going a roundabout way of bringing up the fact that Randall had issues in his past, Kevin did as well, and so did she, that she never talked about, because she wants to talk about something. Now, until later in the episode, I had no idea what Kate was doing here at all. She was kind of confusing me as much as she was Kevin. I really wasn't quite clear where she was going with that conversation. But her conversation with Ellie stirred up emotions that she wants to talk about, but she changes her mind as far as telling Kevin, and instead ends up telling Toby about when she was 18, dating Mark, a bad relationship, and we have a flash back to the teen Kate, the older teen Kate, played by Hannah Zeal. We see a brief scene that played out in the New York episode, which was the last time that we saw teen Kate for season 4, and we were leaving her in a very weird spot. She chose to stay behind rather than go to New York, saying that a friend was coming over. The audience didn't really believe her. Many thought that Mark was going to come over. Hannah Zeal, beyond that little blurb that we saw in the New York episode, doesn't get any other lines. And without a single line of dialogue, she perfectly captures being a younger version of the adult Kate when she's looking at a pregnancy test, which is clearly positive. Of the now college-age Big Three actors, Hannah Zeal is the most convincing as the younger version of the Big Three. And judging from the preview, we're going to get the return of Mark in the next episode, which will not air for a while. I don't know if he's coming back into the story or if we're just going to see a flashback of him, but either way, he's going to be there. I kind of had a feeling that we weren't quite done with his character. The episode ends with Randall viewing the viral videos and memes of his little strip dance because his video has gone viral. And he has this little amused reaction to it all. But he's not the only one watching. The elderly grandpa character that we saw in the last episode, which I didn't comment on because I had really no interest in doing so, is also watching and noting that he mentions William Hill. Now, wouldn't it be great if Randall's biological mother isn't actually alive at all? If she survived the drug overdose and met this man that we're seeing at the end of the episode, but isn't alive now to see Randall, and that the person that Randall ends up meeting is this guy, who could fill him in on the backstory of his mother. It would certainly be a less soap opera-ish way to go. I don't think this is the direction that they're going to go in, but so far we haven't seen an elder version of Laurel beyond the picture that is plastered all over this guy's apartment. Anyway, that's all I got for this episode. As I mentioned, This Is Us is going on a rather lengthy hiatus, not returning until January 5th. But just because This Is Us is taking a break doesn't mean that I'm going to. I am going to be doing rewatch episodes of the series, starting with episode 3 titled Kyle, because I've already done the first 2. So if you want your This Is Us fix, I'm the guy to watch. If you like this video and wish to support the channel, there's a couple of ways to do so. You can buy something from the Corman Productions store on Zazzle.com. You can follow me on Twitter or my Facebook group page, where you will get updates on the types of videos that I intend to do. You can look into my Patreon, which I just started and am just learning to explore to see how I could go about using it. And of course, you can like, share, and subscribe to my channel. This is Dave from Corman Productions, signing off.